Hello everyone, my name is Jared and welcome to Toxic Moonlight. I'm back from a long break and I'm sorry about the lack of uploads. College and schoolwork got the best of me late in the semester, and I also went on a study abroad program to China for 2 months. So today, I'm starting off a brand new string of videos, the first of which is a Bant Turbo Fog standard deck tech. I personally really like this deck and I'm building this deck myself to compete with at the upcoming GP Richmond. Also, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to help my channel grow, and because I plan on making more content for you guys real soon. Now then, let's get on with the deck. So what is Turbo Fog? Well, the term fog in Magic comes from the very first fog printed all the way back from Alpha, and oh god, I'm sorry, can we get a better version of this that's not so hideous or clunky? There we go. Alright, much better. So, a fog effect is any card that says prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Unfortunately, there are 2 fog spells in standard right now in the form of Haze of Pollen and Root Snare. And since we're playing a playset of both of them, we have a total of 8 fog spells in the deck. That's a lot. Now, all these fog effects are great and all, but how do we win? Preventing combat damage isn't going to win you the game, so what's our plan? The answer? A playset of the 1-card combo Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. This card is frankly broken in this deck, or any white-blue control deck. His +1 draws you a card and gives you perfect mana to cast your fog spells. His -3 is a good tempo swing that can also put himself on top of your deck. And his ultimate will simply leave your opponent helpless. Combine this card with a playset of Nexus of Fate, and you have yourself an infinite cycle of taking extra turns, drawing cards, and exiling every card on your opponent's side of the board until your opponent mills himself out. Now, I know, I hear you. Nexus of Fate is too expensive right now, currently priced at around $35. Even though I don't agree with Wizards' decision to make this card a buy-a-box promo, the deck will certainly be lacking without this type of effect. Being able to take 2 turns or more in a row can help Teferi get to the necessary loyalty to win you the game. A card that prevents you from milling yourself out, and at instant speed, this is fantastic. Any deck with a fragile combo like this needs some support. To start off, we have 2 copies of Karn, Scion of Urza to get that sweet card advantage in his +1 and -1 abilities, as well as those Golem tokens that can close out the game during the mirror match. We're also playing 1 copy of Karn's Temporal Sundering as an extra take an extra turn spell that also outtempos your opponent, and a playset of Gift of Paradise. Wait, a whole playset of a 3-mana land enchantment? Why are we running that? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Currently, the standard meta is riddled with aggressive decks built to deal as much damage as they can. So being able to cast your important spells like Teferi or Nexus of Fate early is well welcomed. Gift of Paradise also gains you 3 life on entry, so it may stabilize you or help you live another turn until you get your combo going. Now let's get into the best part of playing blue, and that's draw some cards. The first spell that I want to talk about are our 3 copies of Search for Azcanta. Now, Search for Azcanta doesn't necessarily draw you cards, but being able to scry 1 every turn, and whenever it flips, just being able to put an instant or sorcery card like, I don't know, a Nexus of Fate, or your Fog effects into your hand is too good to pass up. We also have a playset of Chart a Course, which simply says, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. We don't really care about the rest of the text, because we're not playing any creatures. This discard effect can also help you fuel your Search for Azcanta to flip it. We're also playing 2 copies of Glimmer of Genius as a surprise scry 2 draw 2 effect. Don't care about the energy, we don't need it. And lastly, 2 copies of Supreme Will as a flexible counterspell, or as a search effect on the top of your deck. This deck is playing a total of 26 lands. This deck is technically a control deck, so we're going to treat its mana base as such. So the first type of land that I want to talk about are the basics. We are running 4 copies of both forests and islands. We're not running any planes because the only white spell that we have in the whole deck is Teferi, so we can just leave the white mana production to the dual lands. Speaking of dual lands, we're living in a good time in Standard right now because all 10 of the buddy lands are legal in Standard. So we're playing 4 copies of Hinterland Harbor, the Simic buddy land, 2 copies of Sunpetal Grove, the Selesnya buddy land, and 3 copies of Glacial Fortress, the Azorius buddy land. These lands are great as long as you have any of the associated land types. The next type of lands that are on the list are the cycling lands in the form of Irrigated Farmland and Scatter Groves, both a playset. These lands are great, even though they enter the battlefield tapped, still a dual land, and if you don't need it or it's late in the game, you can just cycle away for any 2 mana. And the last card is a single copy of Field of Ruin, just in case your opponent gets to flip their Search for Azcanta first. Now let's talk about our sideboard. This deck's archenemy in Standard right now is Control, so most of our sideboard cards are used to help fight that matchup. We don't really care too much about aggro decks, since our main board is already geared towards that matchup anyway. The first few cards are 2 copies of Jace's Defeat and a playset of Negate. These cards are great against Control to stop them from casting their own Teferis or counterspells. Jace's Defeat is a little bit more particular, but still great nonetheless. The next card on our list are 2 copies of Baral Chief of Compliance. It's just a 1/3 legendary creature that makes your instant and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast, and it also loots you whenever you successfully counter an opponent's spell. We're also playing 1 copy of Nezahal as one big beat stick that gets you incremental card advantage whenever your opponent casts a non-creature spell. It's also very hard to remove just by discarding 3 cards. We're playing 1 copy of Cleansing Nova, just in case that aggro matchup gets a little bit out of hand for you. We have 1 copy of Manglehorn, because this deck hates Walking Ballista. This deck cannot win against Walking Ballista, so Manglehorn is our in. We're also playing 2 copies of Lyra Dawnbringer as another big beat stick. Flying First Strike Lifelink for 5 mana, 5/5. Seems pretty good to me. And 2 copies of Carnage Tyrant. Says can't be countered, says hexproof, says good against Control. This deck looks really fun to play with. Maybe not to play against, but I'll talk to my friends and see how they feel about that. I can't wait till all my cards come in the mail so I can start playing this deck in paper. If you want to start playing this deck, feel free to copy down this deck or take a screenshot of it. This deck is currently a little over $480. Most of that price tag comes from the Teferis and Nexus of Fates, but really, it could be worse for a Standard deck. It could be more. Thanks for watching this Bant Turbo Fog Standard deck tech. If you like this video, be sure to give this video a like and tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I also plan on making more content for you guys soon, so click that subscribe button so you know when those videos come out. What deck should I cover next? Leave your recommendation in the comments below and it might become a future video. Alright, I'm done here. Time to go playtest. And I'll see you guys next time.